People like to brag about frame-off restorations, but I don't really like that phrase. If you're restoring a body-on-frame vehicle, you kind of have to take the body off the frame. Otherwise, you're not really doing a restoration, you're just polishing a turd. You can also do a frame-off job and still do it poorly, so frame-off seems unnecessary. I'm not doing a restoration, but I am taking the frame off. I'm also not polishing a turd. I'm sandblasting and then powder coating the turd. I need to take the body off the frame for two reasons. One is that the underside of this car is disgusting. It's all dirt and rust. The only way to get it clean is to remove it. It appears to be mostly surface rust with some pitting, but I really need to know if there are any parts that need to get cut out and replaced. I also need to finish welding all the reinforcements I added previously. I can't get to some of the welds, and almost all of them will be significantly easier with the frame removed. The car really does have the same basic design of cars made 20 years prior. It becomes more obvious with the fenders taken off. It looks almost like a classic American hot rod when you take the hood off. Like if I took that chrome grille over there and put it in the front, it would fit right in with the old 30s and 40s hot rods, except for the fact that there's a complete lack of an engine. But anyway, I need to figure out how to get the frame out from under the car. This is a bit of a challenge since I have a short ceiling and no lift. There are 22 bolts holding the frame to the body. There's 2 in the back here. There's 8 along the edges, 4 on each side. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 10 on the floor on the inside that have nuts on the bottom. Every bolt on this car was rusted such that the nuts would just get jammed when trying to take them off, so I got ahead of the problem here by just cutting the ends of the bolts off. There are also another 2 bolts on the inside, one there and one in the dark here somewhere. These go to the frame, but there aren't any nuts on the underside. They just go into some tapped holes that are welded to the frame. I'm not sure why these are different, probably something to do with the manufacturing process. To get to the inside bolts, I needed to remove the carpet. I made 0 effort to save this carpet. It will just be replaced, which is good because it's fragile and it's probably filled with asbestos and pure uncut CFCs. Remember CFCs? I mentioned in a previous video that at some time a lead acid battery had leaked down onto the transmission tunnel. It appears that this tunnel is a replacement. At first I thought it was a custom replacement job that someone did because it looks handmade, but it could have just been a replacement from a different Mark V since a lot of this car looks handmade. I found a penny wedged under the carpet in this area, dated 1964, so this car did see some use until at least the mid-1960s. So here's what I did. I removed all but 4 of the frame bolts, the ones inside in the corners. Then I jacked the car up and moved the jack stands to support the body instead of the frame. Then I chained my hoist to the front of the frame and put my floor jack under the rear of the frame. Then I just removed those 4 bolts and slowly dropped the frame. This would have been a lot easier if I had the garage door on the other side because the frame gets narrower at the front and wider at the rear. Once I get the frame out, I'm gonna have to move it to the driveway because I have no space left in this garage. With the frame unbolted and on the floor, I can't get it out because the frame is wider than the jack stands, so I have to use my 2-post lift. And by 2-post lift, I mean, of course, 2 4x4 wooden posts. I put the posts under the car and put the floor jack under the posts. Then I lifted the car off of the jack stands and just moved the jack stands under the posts. Then I just slid the frame forward out from under the car. The Jaguar frame comes with this big cross brace in the middle. This is presumably to help with overall vehicle rigidity, which helps with handling and ride comfort, and generally makes this car a nicer vehicle to drive. I'm gonna remove it. I need to put these big ass Tesla batteries somewhere, and this looks like a pretty good spot. I decided to cut out the brace first to make this heavy thing a little less heavier and easier to move around. I just chopped through the easiest place to chop through and got rid of the center part. Yay, weight reduction. I may have mentioned this before, but this car was built before pavement was invented, back when everything was dirt. Houses were dirt, roads were dirt. You went to the car wash and a high-pressure stream of dirt would blast out of the nozzle onto your car. As such, this frame is 40% dirt by volume. Thankfully, I own a pressure washer. This resulted in more weight reduction. I also mentioned this before, but the welds on this frame are not so great. The motor mounts came off with a quick grind on one side and just sort of wiggling them back and forth for a little bit. I'm not the worst welder, but I can say that it's a little surprising that all of my welds are significantly better than the factory welds. This is probably a combination of technological improvements and the fact that Germany had recently dropped bombs on all of England's welders. Anyway, this all made it easier to remove the tabs and braces I didn't need, so I can't complain. Yay, shitty welds. The fuel line tabs all popped right off with my bespoke tab removal tool. By the way, I didn't notice this before, but this car came with an electric fuel pump in 1950. I don't know if that was common in Europe back then, but it definitely wasn't here in the States. The main frame rails are welded together with a few welds spaced pretty far apart, so I went back and added some weld. A lot of times when you're TIG welding steel, you can just melt one part into the other part, but this frame would not even think about welding without plenty of filler rod. I also cut off all of these floating nuts. These are all rusted so badly that they just don't work anymore. I'm going to replace them with some rivet nuts. Once I had everything pried off and ground down, it was time to get with the welding. Remember all that reinforcement I added to get the Tesla subframe in the back of this thing? Well, all of that needed to be fully welded. I didn't do that previously because I knew I was going to pull the frame out, and this way it's much easier. This took a little bit longer than I had anticipated. It would have gone faster with a MIG welder, but I don't own a MIG welder, so here we are. I also ran out of shielding gas partway through and had to make a quick trip to Airgas. I also forgot when I first started welding to put my sleeves on, and I got a wicked sunburn on my arms. I always forget the sleeves. I know I said I was going to leave these areas open and rivet in some aluminum channel, but I decided to just weld them up. I know my welds aren't great, no need to comment on it. I was worried about corrosion, but I think it'll be okay. I don't plan on fording any rivers, and if I do, that will probably lead to a battery fire, which will make the corrosion in these areas kind of a moot point. I also added some triangulation to the bar that holds the rear subframe. This will help stiffen up this part and keep it from seeing loads that will make it want to bend. Bending loads are the natural enemy of the engineer. They often result in high stress or inefficient structures. Speaking of triangulation, I added some extra metal to the front subframe mounts as well to make sure that the load is nicely distributed. Looks much better. I also added a plate to the inside, just kind of welded over the previous weld. These are sometimes called fish plates for reasons that I'm too lazy to Google. I also welded up some holes that were on the inside of the frame. I'm hoping this will make it easier to keep the battery compartment sealed up and dry. Once that was all done, I sent off the frame to be powder coated. I love powder coating. You send someone a rusty, dirty ass frame and give them some money, and a week later your frame is clean and black and has a hard candy shell. Sometimes it's good to pay someone else to deal with your dirt, especially when you have your own dirt to deal with. See, I don't want to have to remove this frame from the body again, but for that to happen, I need to clean and paint the underside of the car. Unfortunately, the underside of this car is disgusting. It's covered in rust and dirt that has rusted. I didn't really want to sandblast the underside, mostly because I don't want to have to buy a big air compressor. In my experience, the usefulness of a sandblaster is directly proportional to the size of your air compressor, and I kind of hate air compressors. So I got some wire brushes, a wire wheel, and I went to town. I was worried that I would get crap all over my garage, so I sort of covered the car with some plastic to keep it fairly contained. There are a lot of nooks and crannies under here that are hard to get clean, and I will admit that I did not do what I would call an A+ job. It was a B- at best. But I know I got a huge amount of rust and dirt out because the area under my car looked kind of like an apocalyptic wasteland, and my hair absorbed enough of it to make it look like somebody got murdered in my shower. The plastic sheeting did do its job of keeping the dust in and around the car. After a good scrape down, I used a rust treatment called OSPHO. This stuff is great. You spray it on and you just let it sit for a day and it turns all your surface rust into, not rust. You need to scrape off any loose rust or dirt first. If you don't do a great job, you'll see this white crusty stuff, which is in the corners here. You can knock that off with a wire brush before you paint. Be careful with this stuff. It's acid, phosphoric acid, I think. It does burn if you get it on your skin, and it's probably not good for your clothes or actually anything, so be careful. After it was all dry, I painted the bottom with some tough epoxy primer to give it a good base coating. This stuff is good on bare metal and after using the OSPHO if you do it correctly. Just read the instructions. There were a lot of nooks and crannies, so I taped a brush to the end of a broomstick to make sure I got everything. After that paint was dry, I hit it with some 3M underbody coating. I recommend all of these products, OSPHO, SPI, epoxy primer, and 3M undercoating. All really good stuff. About the time I finished up with this, I got a call from Melrose Metal Finishing telling me my powder-coated frame was ready to be picked up. They did a great job. Shout out to Melrose. I decided not to weld too many mounts to the frame so that I could modify things in the future if I needed. For instance, on these rear shock mounts, I decided to make them removable instead of welding them directly to the frame. I'm pretty sure I know what coilover shocks I'm using back here, but it's always nice to have the ability to change it without cutting welds and re-welding after powder coat. Same thing with the front lower control arms. That's about it. It's almost time for it to go back under the car, but first I need to get what's left of a Tesla battery case mounted up, but that's for another week. Thanks for watching. I'm not really sure what other questionable ideas I'm going to have for my cars in the future, but I can guarantee I will have them. So hit that subscribe button and find out. Thanks for watching.